In most organizations today, non-human identities outnumber humans by a factor of 25 to 50 times. Some organizations are seeing ratios as high as 80 to 1. Welcome to Secure by Design, the podcast where we explore how identity and wider cybersecurity shape the foundation of our digital world. I'm Santosh, and in every episode, I'll share insights and practical perspectives on how we can build security into every layer of technology and business. From identity governance and zero trust to the latest in cloud and compliance, let's dive into what it takes to design security that lasts. All right, let's jump right in. What if I told you there's an entire workforce operating 24/7 inside your company right now? They are making critical decisions, they are moving your most sensitive data, but they don't have desks. They don't take coffee breaks. They are a massive part of your team that you probably never even see. And the truly wild part is that this invisible workforce outnumbers your human employees by an absolute staggering margin. We're often talking 50 is to 1, but in some organizations, this can be 80 is to 1 or even higher. Now, these aren't some sci-fi robots. They are digital entities that power pretty much every modern businesses. And honestly, they are one of the biggest security blind spots we have today. So, what are we really talking about here? Well, they're called non-human identities, or NHIs for short. Just think of them as the digital credentials for all your applications, your cloud services, your build pipelines, your AI bots, anything you can think of. Non-human identities are any credentials or identities used by machines, applications, services, or automated processes to authenticate and access resources. This includes service accounts used by applications to connect to database, file systems, or other services, API keys and tokens that allow applications to communicate with each other programmatically, SSH keys and certificates used for secure machine-to-machine connections, cloud access keys like AWS access keys, Azure service principals, GCP service accounts, secrets like passwords, connection strings, encryption keys stored in code or config files, CI/CD pipeline credentials used in DevOps automations and deployment pipelines, bot credentials, IoT device identities, workload identities for containers, serverless functions, and microservices. There's a whole raft of it. They all can act on their own with no human in loop. And their autonomy, the ability to act on their own, is exactly what makes them so dangerous. They're expected to grow by another 20% in the next 12 months. See, all our traditional security was built for people. It was built for employees who log in, get authenticated, and have their access managed by IT. But these NHIs, they are playing a total different game with a total different set of rules. Traditional identity and access management tools were designed with humans in mind. They assume identities are tied to HR systems with joiner mover leave life cycles. Authentications use passwords and multi-factor authentication, or passkeys if your organization has implemented it. Access patterns are predictable, say 9 to 5 office hours, specific locations, and then their entitlements are periodically subject to access reviews and certification. None of these assumptions work for NHIs. Just look at this contrast. It's kind of crazy when you see it side by side. When a new person joins your company, there's this strict HR driven process: onboarding, background checks, defined roles, and a very clear process for when they leave. But for non human identities, they are created dynamically by developers and automation tools, often without centralized oversight. They operate 24/7 with no concept of business hours. Don't use passwords and MFA in the traditional sense. They have life cycles measured in minutes in case of ephemeral containers, or years when it's service accounts, and are impossible to monitor with human behavior analytics. It's indeed the Wild West. A typical use case might be something like a developer needing a key for some new service, so they just create one. It gets hard-coded into an app, maybe shared over Slack, and then more than often than not, it's completely forgotten about. There is no HR department for robots, and this chaos leads to some really massive challenges. First off, you got this incredible sprawl with basically zero visibility. I mean, most organizations can't even tell you how many of these things they have. Second, ownership is a mystery. Who's responsible for that API key someone created 2 years ago for a project that doesn't even exist anymore? That's anyone's guess. Third, they're almost always wildly overprivileged, giving the keys to the entire kingdom just in case. And the best bit, they completely bypass standard security controls like multi-factor authentication, which makes them a soft and juicy target for attackers. Do you believe that hackers would not have noticed this? Why waste time trying to hack through complex firewalls when you can just find the keys lying around and barge in right through the front door? This brings us to a really crucial shift in how modern attacks work. You hear this from security experts all the time now. Attackers don't break in, they log in. They are using legitimate but stolen non human credentials to get access. They then move around unnoticed and steal data, all while looking like perfectly normal authorized traffic. This is by far the number one way attackers are getting in. These are massive and systematic vulnerability that's been exploited every single day, and this illustrates the danger perfectly. Let's take the Okta breach, the one we saw in the last episode. You remember how all that started? With the credentials for a single service account being stolen from an employee's personal Google account. That's it. With that one key, the attackers got into Okta's support system. From there, they were able to hijack session tokens for Okta's actual customers, creating this huge cascading supply chain attack. It all stemmed from one single, poorly managed non-human identity. Or take the instance of Shadna Electric hack in late 2024, which was carried out by the Hellcat ransomware group. They gained access to Shadna's internal Atlassian Jira project management system using a stolen Jira service account credentials, bypassing traditional perimeter defenses. Once inside, they exploited the system's REST API to automate the extraction of vast amount of over 40 GB of compressed information. Exfiltrated data included internal project tracking details, critical issues, configuration plugins, over 400,000 rows of user records, and around 75,000 unique email addresses belonging to employees, customers, and project collaborators. It's a classic example of non-human identity compromise propagating a high-impact data breach in the OT IT supply chain. Dropbox Sign experienced a significant security breach when attackers exploited a compromised backend service account. This granted them access to the customer database, exposing sensitive user data, including email addresses, usernames, and hashed passwords. A single compromised service account provided the keys to the kingdom. Looking at these incidents, several patterns emerge. Number one, overprivileged NHIs, like service accounts and API keys with far more access than needed. Number two is lack of rotation, credentials that hadn't been changed in years or forever. Number three is secret sprawl, credentials stored in code repositories, config files, and .env files. No monitoring, supply chain exposure, where third-party integrations with delegated access tokens, and the other common factor is no MFA. Obviously, machine identities can't use traditional MFA, making them attractive targets. According to the ESG survey, organizations believe more than 1 in 5 of their non-human identities are insufficiently secured. And with the rising number of NHIs, coupled with reliance on manual management practices like spreadsheets and homegrown tools, organizations are creating serious operational and security risks. Why should executives care? Because NHI compromises get board level attention. According to the ESG survey, again, 57% of non human identity compromises definitely got board level attention, while 37% of respondents indicated their organization's board may have delved into the details of the incident. The business impacts are severe: operational disruptions and service outages, data breaches and exposure of sensitive information, compliance violations, and regulatory fines. I mean, under GDPR, you can be fined up to 4% of annual revenue. Reputational damage and loss of customer trust. Financial losses from fraud and remediation costs. As one CISO puts it at the first NHI security conference in New York, NHI risks have always been present, but previously there were bigger fish to fry, like human IAM, PAM, and cyber defenses. NHIs are now viewed as a top 3 risk for CISOs. NHI credentials are scattered everywhere, hard-coded in application source code, stored in configuration files, saved in CI/CD pipeline variables, kept in developers' local machines, written in wikis and documentation, stored in shared drives and wikis, and saved in password managers, both corporate and personal. Now, if you think this is a problem now, just you wait. The rise of AI and autonomous agents is about to pour gasoline on this entire fire. Today, we might have 50 non-human identities for every single human identity. But in the very near future, where every employee could have multiple AI agents doing work for them, that number is going to explode. Each of those agents is a brand new non-human identity that needs its own credentials, its own permissions, and its own management. You're talking about an exponential increase in our attack surface. This leads to a really, really worrying question. Are we teaching our most powerful new tools our absolute worst security habits? You have to remember, AI models learn from the data we feed them. And right now, what they're learning from? They're learning from code bases where developers have hard-coded 24 million secrets into public GitHub repositories. We are systematically training our AI agents to be insecure from day one. This sentiment was secured in a recent NHI Global Summit in London that I attended. The discussions mainly surrounded on securing AI agents and how they're transforming AI IAM. The discussions mainly surrounded on securing AI agents and how they are transforming IAM. Okay, so the problem is huge. It's getting bigger fast, and it's pretty scary. But is this not solvable? What we need is a modern playbook, one that's specifically designed for this invisible workforce. And that playbook follows a pretty clear life cycle. First, you have to discover what you even have. You got to create a complete inventory because you can't protect what you can't see. Second, you classify them by risk and assign clear human ownership. Classify them based on privilege level, data sensitivity, blast radius, is it ephemeral or long lived, etc. Every single identity needs a person who is accountable for it. Third, you lock them down. Enforce least privilege, give them only the access they absolutely need, and automate rotating their credentials. Fourth, you monitor their behavior constantly. And finally, you govern their entire life cycle from the moment they are created to the moment they are retired. And you do it all automatically. So, why does this actually matter to the business? Well, the cost of doing nothing is staggering. The average data breach cost over $4.6 million, and that's not even counting the regulatory fines and lost productivity. The return on investment for taking action is firstly avoiding a disaster, but it also results in operational efficiency. The organizations that invested early in NHI governance will be the ones that avoid becoming the next headline breach. The organizations that wait will find themselves explaining to their board, their customers, and possibly the regulators why they didn't address a known risk. We've seen this movie before with human IAM. 20 years ago, organizations resisted implementing IGA because it seemed complex and expensive. Then breaches happened, regulations tightened, and IGA became mandatory. The same thing is happening now with NHIs, except it's moving much faster. Your robo co-workers are already here, and they are multiplying like crazy. They have access to everything. They're learning all your bad habits, and they represent your single biggest path for an attack. So, who's managing them? Thanks for listening to Secured by Design. If today's episode gave you something to think about, subscribe and follow on your favorite streaming platform for more discussions on identity and cybersecurity. Please feel free to share it with your team. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn for updates and new episode releases. Until next time, stay secure, stay resilient, and stay secured by design.